Good morning, children. Welcome back to the lesson. We are not afraid to die if we can all be together. Written by Gordon Cook and Alan East. Uh, Already we have two sessions on this lesson. Today is the last session, right? So before that, let us go for a quick recap of what we have already done. The story is of a 37-year-old businessman who wanted to duplicate the round the world voyage made some 2000 years earlier by Captain James Cook. So, for that purpose, he made a boat named Wave Walker, and the size of it was 23 meters and 3-ton wooden hulled beauty. And it was tested in the roughest weather and for the last 16 years. And the journey started from Plymouth, England, okay, along with his wife Mary, son Jonathan, daughter Susan, and he took two crewmen, American Larry Vigil and Swiss Herb Siegler. And the first leg of the journey was very peaceful, and the very second day onwards, they started facing hardships, alarming waves like 15 meters height started attacking the boat, and they could not enjoy the new year properly because the climate turned very horrible, atrocious climate was there, and the weather was not favoring them. And soon the author had a accident when a large wave came and hit the ship. He was almost in a drowning position, but somehow he kept on hanging on the deck of the ship and started repairing the ship using canvas and hammer. By then the girl, his daughter, had a head injury, but she was not ready to reveal it to her father, thinking that father was saving everybody's life. And that two crewmen, they were working like madmen, pumping out the water from the ship, but suddenly the pump stopped working, and the ship was almost in a capsizing position. But suddenly the author remembered one spare electric pump which was found working, that actually saved their life. Okay, now all of you take page number 15, right? By morning on January 3rd, the pumps had the water level sufficiently under control for us to take 2 hours rest in rotation. Finally, with the help of the spare pump, they were able to control the water that was entering the ship or the boat. But we still had a tremendous leak somewhere below the waterline, and and on checking, I found that nearly all the boat's main rib frames were smashed down to the keel. In fact, there was nothing holding up a whole section of the starboard hull except a few cupboard partitions. So the condition of the boat is very critical now. It has got a big damage. It has got a big damage at the bottom, that is the keel. The bar along the bottom of a boat is called keel. Dear children, mark the word keel. It is a bar along the bottom of a ship, right? And it was in a very critical condition now. Water is entering through that. Okay, we had survived for 15 hours since the wave hit, but Wave Walker wouldn't hold together long enough for us to reach Australia I checked our charts and calculated that there were two small islands a few hundred kilometers to the east. One of them, Isle Amsterdam, was a French scientific base. Our only hope was to reach these pinpricks in the vast ocean, but unless the wind and the seas abated so we could hoist sail, our chances would be slim indeed. The great wave had put our auxiliary engine out of action. So, children, and now being the captain of the ship, the narrator checked the chart and calculated the distance, and the only chance is to reach that pinpricks in the vast ocean. What do you mean by pinpricks? It is a small island. Okay, actually their intention is not to reach that small island, but now at least to reach the island there and to get the boat repaired. That is the intention of the captain and the narrator of the ship. Okay, and for that they should get favorable weather condition, only then they could hoist the sail and could reach the place. And for the time being, the great wave had put out our auxiliary, means that helping engine out of action. On January 4, after 36 hours of continuous pumping, we reached the last few centimeters of water. Now we had only to keep pace with the water till still coming in. Actually, they could never stop the business of sending water out of the boat because there was a leakage. We could not set any sail on the main mast. Pressure on the rigging would simply pull the damaged section of the hull apart. So we hoisted the storm jib and headed for where I thought the two islands were. Mary found some corned beef and cracker biscuits, and we ate our first meal in almost 2 days. So see the difficult condition the narrator and the family members had undergone. For the last 2 days they could not eat their meal, facing and battling with the adverse weather condition. Now Mary, the wife, brought corned beef, that is a food item, and cracker biscuits that they ate as their first meal in 2 days time. So that is the condition of the people on board of that boat Wave Walker. But our rest was short-lived. At 4 p.m., black clouds began building up behind us. Within the hour, the wind was back to 40 knots. That's a speed or a measure, and the seas were getting higher. Seas here stands for the waves. The weather continued to deteriorate throughout the night, and by dawn on January 5, our situation was again desperate. See, children, there is no respite, means rest for this family. The climate is going from worst to the worst, from bad, worse, and worst. So deteriorate means to reduce, okay, to worsen. And very desperate situation was there on January 5. So you can mark it what happened on January 5. When I went to comfort the children, John asked, "Daddy, are we going to die?" And the 6-year-old son asked his father whether they were to die. I tried to assure him that we could make it, but Daddy, he went on, we aren't afraid of dying if we can all die together. You and Mummy, Sue and I. See, this is the courage of that boy. The boy is not afraid of his death. What he says is he is ready to die if all of us are going to die together. See, that actually boosted the courage of the father. I couldn't find no words with which to respond, but I left the children's cabin determined to fight the sea with everything I had. To protect the weakened starboard side, I decided to heave to with the undamaged port hull facing the oncoming waves, using an improvised sea anchor of heavy nylon rope and 222-liter plastic barrel of paraffin. Say, when his son gave him the assurance that he was ready to die along with everybody, the father's confidence was boosted, and now he decided to repair the ship by hanging onto the starboard. Okay, heaving, that means to hang on the starboard, and he would be using a nylon rope and 222 liters of plastic barrel, okay, of paraffin, means kerosene. Okay, what do you mean by the difficult word for you is improvised. Improvised means quickly made. Okay, and paraffin stands for kerosene. Okay, so he is going to make a temporary anchoring system now to stop the boat. Okay, that evening Mary and I sat together holding hands as the motion of the ship brought more and more water in through the broken planks. We both felt the end was very near. Both husband and wife now felt their end is very near, because water is kept on entering into the boat. The Waywalker, the name of the boat, rode out the storm, and by the morning of January 6, with the wind easing, I tried to get a reading on the sextant. So children, here's a word for you to write down. Sextant is an instrument used on a ship or aircraft to calculate its position. So with that instrument they can see where the ship is now. Now we have Google app, we have Google map reader, but those days they use this instrument that is called sextant, through which they could easily identify where the boat is at present. Okay, back in the chartboard I worked on wind speeds, changes of course, drift and current in an effort to calculate our position. The best I could determine was that we were somewhere in 150,000 kilometers of ocean, looking for a 65 kilometers wide island. They are very, very far away from their destination, 150,000 kilometers, but only 65 kilometers to a wide island, nearby island. While I was thinking, Sue, moving painfully, joined me. The left side of her head was now very sullen, and her blackened eyes narrowed to slits. She gave me a card she had made. Actually, coming to his daughter Susan, she was 7 years old. Okay, she had a head injury when the ship had a accident with the wave. She developed a swollen head with that accident, and now she couldn't open her eyes properly. It has coming to like a slit, a narrow cut opening is called slit. Write down. Slit means cut opening, a small slit. You cannot see her eyes, but you could see only a cut in the place of the eyes. She gave me a card and she made. On the front of she had drawn caricatures of Mary and me. She has drawn the figure of father and mother in a caricature form. Here are the funny people. Did they make you laugh? I laughed a lot as well. Inside was a message. Oh, how I love you both. So this card is to say thank you and let us hope for the best. Somehow we had to make it. The girl in that adverse situation also could draw a caricature of father and mother, and she also wrote that that she loved them both very much. Okay, that again boosted the courage of the father as a captain and as a narrator. I checked and rechecked my calculation. We had lost our main compass, and I was using a spare which had not been corrected for magnetic variation. Now the author is trying to find the correct direction for the boat, but sorry to say that compass is not working properly. You know what a compass is? A compass is a small instrument to find the direction, the north side. I made an allowance for this and another estimate of the influence of the westerly current, the flow of water which flow through this part of the Indian Ocean. So he is making some guesswork of the place in the absence of the compass. About 2 p.m. I went on deck and asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degrees. If we were lucky, I told him with a conviction. What is conviction? Belief. I did not feel he could expect to see the island at about 5 p.m. As a captain, he said, as per his own guesswork, he said if his idea is correct, okay, and he asked Larry, the crewman, to steer the course towards 185 degree and predicted that they would reach that small pinpricks, that small island, by 5 p.m. in the evening, right? Then with the heavy heart I went below, climbed on my bunk. Bunk is a bed in a ship, is called bunk. On my bunk, and amazingly dozed off. And the narrator finally felt tired and he went to take rest for some time, but badly he dozed off. When I woke, it was 6 p.m. By the time he woke up, it was not 5 p.m. Actually, he woke up at 6 p.m. and in the growing dark. I knew we must have missed the island, and he felt his prediction of reaching the island, that was 5 p.m. Now it is 6 p.m. and he felt he could not touch the island, and with the sail we had left, we wouldn't hope to beat back into the westerly winds. At that moment, a tousled head. Okay, what do you mean by tousled head here? The boy having not arranged his hair properly, a disarranged head. You write down. Dear children, you write down, a disarranged head is called tousled head. Okay, that boy appeared by the bunk. Can I have a hug? Jonathan asked. That boy asked his father whether he could hug his father. Sue was right behind him. The daughter Susan was also behind him. Why am I getting a hug now? I asked. The author asked why he should get a hug, means embracing from the boy. Because you are the best daddy in the whole world and the best captain, my son replied. And what did the boy say? The boy said that he was the best daddy in the world and the best captain. And it was a surprise for the father. Not today, John, I am afraid. We could not reach the island, so he felt, no, that today, some other day. Why? You must be, said Sue in a matter of fact of voice. You found the island. What? I shouted. Arthur was so surprised because he was sleeping. Before that, this boat reached that island. What? I shouted. It is out there in front of us, the chorused, as big as a battleship. See, there beyond us is the island. I rushed on deck and gazed with relief at the stark outline of Isle Amsterdam. That's the place. That is the name of that place, Isle Amsterdam. It was only a bleak piece of volcanic rock with a little vegetation. Dear children, please mark this island having no vegetation. You cannot find any plant in this island. You can find only rock. The most beautiful island in the world. Still, it is considered as the most beautiful island in the world. There was no plant. There is no flower. There are no flowers. Only rock is there in that particular island, but still it is called the beautiful island in the world. We anchored offshore for the night, and everybody came out of the boat only to spend their night in that particular island. And the next morning, all 28 inhabitants of that island cheered as they helped us ashore. And there is a question, how many inhabitants? You know what inhabitants are? People living in a particular place is called inhabitants. Okay, so how many inhabitants are there in that island? 28 inhabitants. With land under my feet again, my thoughts were full of Larry and Herb, cheerful and optimistic under the direst stress. Actually, that captain is so thankful to the two crewmen that he hired, Larry and Herb. Okay, in the direst stress they helped, and of Mary, who stayed at the wheel for all those crucial hours. And he is very thankful to his wife Mary, who did not make a complaint and stood near the wheel all the time. And most of all, I thought of a 7-year-old girl, his own daughter, who did not want us to worry about a head injury. She did not even complain about her head injury, which subsequently took 6 minor operations to remove the recurring blood clot between skin and skull. Actually, afterwards, that narrator had to take to her a hospital where minor operations, 6 minor operations were performed on her to remove the blood clot between skin and the skull. See, and of a 6-year-old boy who was not afraid to die. So these are all for the credit for the narrator, and how bold all the family members were. So dear children, this is the theme of the lesson. If you have courage and if you have the strong indomitable will to tackle any situation, you will become so successful in it. With this, we conclude the lesson, and before that, let us make a review of what we have already discussed for the day. So today we started with that continuation of the journey from January 2, and the pump is somewhat working and they could manage the water, but the bottom of the boat was slightly damaged, and there is a permanent leakage of water entering to the boat. And finally, the narrator felt that they could reach a place called Isle Amsterdam, a small island in the vast ocean, by 5 p.m. And with the direction to the crewman to divert the boat to 185 degree, he went to doze off, and finally he slept badly. Okay, and by then the children came near to him and asked whether they could hug their father. Then he asked why. Then the children said they reached the island called the Isle Amsterdam, and there were 28 inhabitants in that island, and they cheered. And it is very understood that the author might have repaired the boat with the help of the inhabitants in that particular island, and would have continued his journey to complete the round the world voyage performed by James Cook some 200 years. Okay, and that is the end of the lesson, children, and have a nice day ahead. Thank you very much for listening to my lecture.